Hey folks, it's John with KGTropicals.com bringing you a very special episode of KGQandA from our brand new studio. I'm so excited about this. If you haven't been following along the last few weeks, this has been my labor of love for the last few weeks, and I'm really excited to be able to finally bring you a real video with some real content from this new studio. Things are still not perfect, I know. The audio might still be in mono. You might still hear a little fuzz in the background. I'm working on it. But you know what? I know for a fact that I am able to bring you a much better product right now, even with the flaws, than I was able to bring you at the shop. So I'm very excited. This is what I've been waiting for a long time, is to have something like this where I can go whenever I want. I don't have to do a big setup. I can just sit down and create some content for you. So this whole thing started because of the podcast, and you're not aware of the podcast? Where have you been? If you haven't listened to the podcast, please check it out. I think you'll enjoy it. It's called Tank Talk. It's available on iTunes. It's available on Stitcher Radio and Podcast Republic and really any other podcasting app that's out there. If you're not familiar with how podcasting apps work and all of that, you can get it directly from our website. Go on there. Go on to the social page, or you can go on to the listen to our podcast page. It's right there on the side of our website, www.KGTropicals.com, just in case you're wondering. And you can listen to the podcast directly on there. It's just a embedded player that you push play, and there it is. And you can listen to it. I've been having such a good time with it. I record 2 podcasts every single week. They go up on Tuesdays and Thursdays. The Tuesday episode is called Tank Talk, and the Thursday episode is called Tank Talk QandA. Exactly the same as KGQandA, except it's in podcast form, so I can answer a whole lot more questions and go a lot more in depth with my answers. Some people like that, some people don't, but hey, it's there. The great thing about podcasts, the thing that makes it different from watching YouTube videos, is that you don't have to commit to paying 100% attention to watching a screen. You can put your earbuds in and you can be mowing the grass, you can be laying out, you can do whatever you want to do, and you can still be listening to the podcast. If your phone hooks up to Bluetooth through your car, you can listen to me in your car. How cool is that when you're stuck in traffic? So please, I encourage you to go and listen to that podcast. We've got Dustin from Dustin's Fish Tanks is going to be on this week's episode coming up on Tuesday. So I'm really excited about that. You know the way him and I are. We're very passionate. We're very animated. I think we're going to get a really good discussion going. So I'm having a blast with this, and I hope you are too. I thank everyone who's gone over and checked out that podcast so far. But you know what? We got a video to do here right now. So I want to update you on something to do with KGQandA, and this is huge, folks. This is the biggest thing that I've done with KGQandA since I started it, and that is I'm going to completely change the format. This applies to the video series as well as the podcast series. And that is, instead of having you email me, which you still can at kgqanda@gmail.com, put it right there, you're more than welcome to email your questions to me. But if you want to have a little bit more fun with it, I have set up a voicemail line. Now, you're not going to call this number and I'm going to pick up. It's exclusively a voicemail. It doesn't even ring anybody's phone. It's a Google Voice voicemail account. You call this number and leave your question on a voicemail. And what this system allows me to do is download that message as an MP3, and I'll be able to play it right here on the series and then answer your question. I think it's going to be a lot more personal doing it that way rather than having me email or fumble through email or you reading your email on the video series. I think it's going to be a lot more personal, and I think it's going to be a lot more fun. So what is the number? It's right there. 1-540-709-1054. Call that number. It's going to ask you for your name. I don't know why it does that. I guess in case I decide I want to listen to it. I don't know. But it says, please give me your name. So you'll say your name or you'll say, hey, or whatever. And then you'll hear it ring and it'll go to a voicemail exactly like any other voicemail. You'll hear my voice on there, and I will remind you of a couple things to put in your voicemail, your name, where you're from, and all that good stuff. And just leave your voicemail on there. Leave your question. I've got 3 of them that have already done this, and I'm really excited to answer those today. I announced this on Tank Talk QandA, the podcast, last night, and immediately had 3 people call in and leave messages. So that was really exciting. I want to thank them for doing that. They know who they are because they called almost immediately after I put that up. So I'm going to answer those for you in a second. I just want to recap. If you call 1-540-709-1054, leave your question on that voicemail, and I'll answer it in an upcoming either the podcast or the video series. Now, here's the thing. If you still want to email me the question because you're afraid of your voice being on the show or anything like that, that's fine. You can do that too. But I'm just going to be honest with you. I think that the voicemails are a lot more fun, and I'm probably going to answer those before I do emails. It's just easier that way, and it gets you more involved in the show. So I am so excited about this. I can't wait to get started. So why am I waiting? I'll tell you why I'm waiting, because I have one more quick thing. Folks, it's too confusing. I've got 2 podcasts and 2 running video series that I'm doing. Tank Talk video series, Tank Talk podcast, Tank Talk Q&A podcast, KGQandA video series. Doesn't make sense. We're going to make it a Tank Talk across the board. We're answering aquarium questions. We're not answering KGTropicals questions on the video series. So it's all going to be Tank Talk. We're going to have Tank Talk and Tank Talk Q&A. All right? I'm not going to go back and change the old videos. Those are going to stay KGQandA. The email address is going to stay kgqandA@gmail.com if you're afraid of being on the voicemail. But it's going to change to Tank Talk Q&A. I think it just makes more sense, sounds better, and it just makes it a little bit more easy to understand. So, okay, now I need to put in my earbud here so that I can hear the first question. Let's get to the first question and get this thing rolling.
Hey, John, this is Ken Baptist from Craig, Colorado. Just a quick question, not sure if you can answer it or not, but I like running my tanks with as few chemicals as I can, and I run cichlid sand in all my tanks. My question is I use a Python to clean the tanks. Every time I get them as clean as I think I can, when I refill them, I notice that there's still a lot of waste in the tanks. Is there any tricks or things that you could think of that would help me on getting them spotless? I like keeping my tanks clean. Again, I just don't know if there's any tricks or secrets that you could help me to help get my tanks a little bit cleaner. Thank you very much. Bye.
All right. Thank you, Ken. Now, I must say, Ken's a friend of mine, and so I'm going to have to bust his chops a little bit. Ken, how come you don't put chemicals in the tank? Really? I mean, if you're sick, do you take medicine? What's the big deal? If a chemical is going to help your water parameters or help a fish from being sick, why not use it? Anyway, that's not why you called. Your question was about fish waste sitting on top of cichlid sand or any sand for that matter. Brother, this is a problem that we have all faced, and it is, to me, the biggest downside to aquarium sand. It looks beautiful. It's a natural look, and that's great, but it doesn't do anything to help with the waste. And in my situation, in my 240 at the shop being the first thing that people see when they come in, because we're open to the public again on Fridays and Saturdays, if you haven't heard, that's the first thing they see. And if it's full of fish poop sitting on top, it looks absolutely terrible. So I am with you. I understand how frustrating that can be. And unfortunately, there's not a whole lot that can be done for it. I can give you some suggestions. I can tell you what I go through with my 240, and I hope that helps. But I mean, it's one of those things that we all deal with when we have aquarium sand in our tank. So the first thing, what you can do is by using low-powered, it doesn't have to be forceful, but low-powered power heads. You can use them to kind of direct the waste to a certain area. I know a lot of people that do that. As long as the water is moving down at the bottom of your tank, it'll push the waste around, and it'll eventually work its way over to your filtration system. Now, this can be a problem because sometimes I know the sand in my aquarium is so fine that sometimes it gets stuck to the waste. And so not only does that clog your filtration faster, but it can also get into your impeller and it can really wreak havoc on your impeller. But if you really want to get a hold of this thing, that's the way to do it, is to direct the water flow in a way that it can push everything to a certain area. Now, in my tank at the shop, what happens is my fish like to dig at the back of the tank. If you have African cichlids, which I know you do, yours like to dig too, because they all do. And they dig it out from the background. And in my tank, I've got 2 braces on the bottom of the tank that were there when it was built. It's because it's so big. And there's a little 1/4-inch gap on 3 different spots underneath the background. You know, it's a little gap open that when the fish dig out all of the sand, it's just a gaping hole there. And what happens is all of the fish poop ends up going underneath that little crack. Now, this is a good thing because you don't see it sitting in the tank. It's not sitting right there on the surface for all the customers to see, but it all accumulates in the back. And so now for me, it actually works out kind of well because what I end up doing is I go behind the tank. My tank isn't up against the wall anymore. And I can put a siphon tube back there behind the background and get it all out. I know for a fact, because I know you don't have a background in your tank, so you don't have the luxury of being able to do that. So what I would suggest to you is exactly what I was saying before. Try to get some current moving at the bottom of the tank that will direct the poo into your filtration. That's probably going to be your best bet. Now, this can be difficult if you have a lot of rocks and you have a lot of decor in the tank. You know I don't. It can be difficult to direct it all through there, and it can be difficult to have it not be so powerful that it's blowing your sand everywhere. I mean, I haven't quite gotten a good grasp on it with my tank yet, but you know, it all goes underneath the crack and you don't really see it anyway. So it's not really a big deal, but I am with you. I understand how frustrating that is. And the only thing, unless you're able to direct it around, like I said, the only other way to resolve that problem is to just clean it more. You know, maybe get one of those battery-powered Eheim. It's the only company I know of that makes one. A little battery-powered vacuum gravel vac thing. But then again, that sucks up the sand in that too. So I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to help you out here as good as I can, but the best thing I can tell you is we all go through that. It is a huge hassle. I feel for you, and I hope I've maybe at least given you something to work with. So, all right, let's go to question number 2.
Hey, John. This is Michael McShane from Walpole, Massachusetts, just outside of Boston. The question is, up here in the north, where all us Yankees live, in the wintertime, we get some extreme temperatures and extreme weather with snow, sub-zero temperatures, and power outages. John, I'd like to see you do a discussion on how to handle long-term power outages when you have a tank full of African cichlids that are worth, you know, over $1,000 or so or more. I'd like to hear a little discussion on that, the best way to handle it. I think maybe you talked about it before. But the winter is approaching again, and always have this fear. So, hey, I'd like a discussion on that. Thanks for all your hard work. You're doing a great job. Appreciate it. Mike McShane, Walpole, Massachusetts. See ya.
I just love that guy. Mike, I'm so glad to hear your voice again. If you don't know Mike, go check out his channel. It's his name, Michael McShane. He went through some stuff recently, and I am so glad that he is back on his feet. Mike is not only a customer of ours, a vast majority of that $1,000 worth of fish that he has came from us, but I also consider Mike a friend because we've gotten to know him, and I'm really glad that he's able to call in and ask questions like this. So thank you, Mike. Now let's get to this problem here. I have covered this in a past episode, but this is such a prevalent issue, it is worthy of answering again. This is another one that is, it's hard to answer because there is a really expensive way to resolve this problem. And then there's one that's not quite as bad, but it's only going to solve your problem halfway. And here's what I mean. Obviously, if you have a power outage up there in Boston and it's in the middle of wintertime, you have two concerns. One, you need to keep the water moving. Your fish can be okay if they're in unfiltered water for 7 days. It's not going to kill them as long as the water's moving. If it's sitting there stagnant, then they're going to run out of oxygen. You're going to find them all up at the top of the tank, breathing the air from the top of the tank. And you definitely don't want that. So you need to keep the water moving. My recommendation to do that would be a battery-operated air pump. Now, your tank is big. I think you have a 150 or a 125. I'm not sure. And so you might need a couple to really get some good movement going on in that tank. Couple of air stones, couple of battery-operated air pumps, and that problem is solved. But then there is a second problem, particularly where you live and even where I live. And that is if it happens in the middle of winter, you're not going to have any heat. So that is a huge challenge. And that is one that I am going to have to look up and get back to you because to my knowledge, there is not a battery-powered aquarium heater. I don't know how they would pull something like that off. So really, in that case, if it is a situation like that, the only thing I could say that would really solve that problem would be a generator, and that is the expensive alternative that I told you. If you really look at it, a small generator is about $350, especially if you buy it now. If you wait till winter when the power's out, it's going to be twice as much. But a small generator is not outrageously expensive. When you consider you've got $1,000 in fish, you probably spent well over $1,000 with that setup you have. I know because I've seen it and it's beautiful. You got a lot of money invested in this, my friend. And so to have a $350 or $400 generator exclusively set for your tank, I don't think is an outrageous proposition. You spent $300 on your Fluval FX6. You spent $1,000 on fish. Why not, to have that security, why not go out and buy just a small generator? And this way it can be exclusive for your tank and you can hook that up and you have your filtration and your lighting and everything. And I mean, it doesn't solve the problem for the rest of your house, but at least it keeps your fish alive. If this was to happen to you in the middle of summer, which I know with the thunderstorms and stuff like that we get here in King George, power goes out in the summer quite a bit. That's not an issue as far as heating the tank. Battery-operated air pumps, you're good to go. But in the winter, I don't know of a really good heat alternative other than a generator. I wish I had a better answer for you, but hopefully, you've found a way, whether it be kerosene heaters or something like that, you found a way to keep your home warm. I would imagine if you're staying warm, the water is going to stay warm enough for your fish. But if you're concerned about heat, the only way that I would know would be a generator. But this is something I would definitely recommend that anybody have a battery-powered air pump, just because you never know. You never know what's going to happen, and it would be nice to keep that air moving. So once again, thank you, Mike, for sending in the question, and I'm really glad to hear from you again. Let's get to the last question here.
Hey, John. Steve out of Washington State. Question is new to the African cichlid hobby. I'm trying to play catch up with your videos, but early on in your breeding setup, in your new story, you talked about showing the way for multiple water changes. I'm just curious what the best way you found is to do that in a semi-automated system. And the second part is for salinity. I keep adding, aquarium salt to replace the water that I changed out, and I add some Malawi alternatives, to the water. Do you ever test for that, and what should that value be? Thanks.
All right. No, I don't test for that. I try to keep things as simple as possible. If I put salt in the aquarium, I just put it in what's recommended on the back of the box. There's a lot of hardcore people out there that would probably bark at me for saying that, but that's what I've been doing for 22 years, and it's been perfectly fine. Now, as far as the water changing system, yes, I did say that, and boy, do I wish I had done that. Unfortunately, the system that I would like to set up in the shop costs a lot of money. But what I would like to set up, there's a couple of different ways of looking at this, okay? If you go back and look at a video that I did last year with Discus Hans, it's The title of the video is Water Changes in the Discus Hans Fish House. Look at the system he has. It is fantastic, but it's a system that involves a rack-long sump. It's very efficient, beautiful system. If I had known about a system like that before I put my rack system together, I would have made it to fit something like that. But the way his is, he empties out his sump and then refills it, and there's his water change. And he does this by way of pumps and just valves and switches, so he doesn't have to lug any bottles or suck on any siphon tubes. Very efficient, very nice system that he has. In my shop, what my initial plan was, and it's still the plan, I just don't know when I'm going to be able to do it, is I was going to get 4 large water storage tanks. It would hold about 1,100 gallons between all 4. And I would have a pump, again, just like Hans has in his setup. I encourage you to go watch that. I would have a pump in there that would be circulating all 4 of those tanks, the storage tanks, so I could treat it with, dechlorinator, or if I wanted to put salt or anything in there, I can do it then so that the water's all ready, and the water would heat up because it's circulating in there, and it would get to the same room temperature. And then through a series of pipes and valves and all of that, I would pump it to the tanks and just basically dump it into the tanks, mixing in with the existing water, which would then, of course, raise the level of the water and overflow into the drains that are already drilled into all of the tanks. I would then drain all of that water outside. So there's no recirculating. All of the tanks are still individual. I'm not against recirculating systems, not in the least, but the cheapest way that I found to do it would be to do it this way, so that you're just basically introducing new water, kind of like a drip system would be. You're constantly, I don't want to say that, not constantly, but you're adding new water into the existing water, and then, overflowing it into the drains. And I would end up doing that to where I would add about 50% of the water to it. So you're probably, since it's mixing together, you're probably getting a 25% water change. I don't know. I never really got far enough to do the math with it, but that is what my plan was. If you look at the tanks, you can see them in that video. You can see them in all of my shipment videos. All of my tanks are pre-drilled with drains in them. So all I need to do is provide a supply of water to that. It'll overflow into those drains. And right now it would drain right into the tank below it. But if I hooked up drains to all of that, if I hooked up a piping system throughout the whole shop, I could direct that water out into the yard or whatever. That's the plan for it. And you know what? We'll probably be moved out of that building before I actually get something like that. So unfortunately for now, we do it the old-fashioned way. I have a siphon tube that's 50 feet long. It came from a python, and I run it into a drain in the floor. And so once I get it primed and get the siphon going, I can go from tank to tank to tank to tank and siphon out the tanks. So I'm not carrying buckets or wheeling a trash can around or anything. And then I just go refill them with a hose that connects directly into the sink. I mean, it's old-fashioned, but it works. And maybe someday I'll have an employee that can do that for me. But for now, it's Lisa and I that do it. That's the best that we can do right now, because a lot of these water changing systems, when you're talking about 220 tanks, which is what we have now, it can be very expensive. So someday, I bought the ticket, so maybe the lottery will come through for me. I don't know. But someday I hope to have something like that set up. I don't have Hans's money, so I couldn't do that when I set the place up. So I hope that helps you out. Probably just confused you even more, but we are going way too long on this video, and it's something I did not want to do. But with updating you on everything, it took forever, and I apologize for that. But remember, 1-540-709-1054. That is the number that you're going to call to leave your voicemails. That's what those 3 gentlemen just did, and they got their question answered. So don't forget to do that. And hey, please, while you're sitting at your computer right now, why don't you type in www.universalrocks.com. You were expecting me to say KGTropicals. Universalrocks.com. The reason why I'm telling you to do that, folks, is because I have got an exclusive promo code given to me to pass on to you guys a 15% discount on your order from Universal Rocks. You know how much of a fan I am of that company. Get on there now, order up your products, and you get a 15% discount. You can't ask for any better than that. And while you're at it, you can do the same thing at KGTropicals and get the same discount. If you're looking for African cichlids, go to www.KGTropicals.com. That's my store. And order up as many fish as you want. Enter in Tank Talk in the promo box at checkout for both websites, Universal Rocks or KGTropicals. If you enter Tank Talk into the promo box at checkout, you get a 15% discount. Now, the Universal Rocks discount is going to be going on, hopefully, for a very long time. But for KGTropicals, we're running that for the next 2 weeks. So if you're watching this, you might want to look at the date that this video was uploaded. If you're watching it in like 2015, the sale's not going to be going on anymore. Sorry. We'll be doing a sale, but it's just not going to be this one. So www.KGTropicals.com, www.universalrocks.com. Get all of these beautiful products from both websites. Enter Tank Talk in the promo box at checkout and get a 15% discount. Thank you all so much for watching this. I hope you enjoy the new format. I hope you've hung in with me long enough. I hope you appreciate what I've done with the new studio. I know I am. I can't wait to film this week's Tank Talk down here. It's going to be fun. Don't forget to check out the podcast at iTunes, Stitcher, any of the podcast apps, or go to our website and check that out. It's a lot of fun. I hope you enjoy it. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time.